Hello, welcome to FightCore USA.
They say fighting is a battle of inches. And while that's mostly true, sometimes it's also a battle of time zones. Fighters often have to travel across the world for a match, which means fighting an invisible opponent, one that can be just as grueling as the ones they face in the octagon. We're talking about jet lag. Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm your host, and this is Fighter versus Fighter. For this episode, we take a look at how fighters deal with jet lag and how they try to overcome this invisible opponent before the real fight even begins. If there's one thing you learn after reporting on MMA for almost 10 years, that being an MMA journalist is the entail glamorous interviews and free passages to the biggest events. In fact, the job can take you to some pretty exotic places. And at times, you get to experience different cultures. But that comes at a price. In my first assignment, covering an event abroad, I didn't realize the importance of rest and recovery until it was too late. I flew to Brazil for UFC 198, which took place in June. It was a great event headlined by Fabricio Werdum and Stipe Mia. If you remember, it was also the night that the legendary Vitor Belfort knocked out Ronaldo Souza in the co-main event. The flight from North America to Brazil is long, and by the time I got there, I already felt exhausted. However, instead of resting up, I spent the day doing media and touristy things. Looking back, I should have stayed in my room, hydrated and slept. Instead, I paid for a last-minute visa the night before the event and barely made it in time. Then after a long day of media, I had to go to the arena to watch one of the best fights in recent memory. So yeah, when you're excited and caught up in the moment, it's easy to forget about the basics. Unfortunately, by the next morning, I learned the hard way that skipping those basics will catch up to you quick. That's why you see many teams arrive weeks before fight night. For example, if a fighter is competing at a show in Australia, his or her team might fly out 2 weeks before the event. This allows them to slowly recover from the flight and adjust their bodies to the new environment. According to Dr. Justin Dugas, who holds a doctorate in exercise science and is the owner of Accelerate Performance, the adjustment period is different for everyone. It all depends on the person, said Dugas. Some people can get away with it and bounce back quicker than others. And it also depends on how far you're traveling. Traveling to the West Coast for a Friday night fight may not require much adjustment compared to flying halfway around the world to fight in China on a Tuesday. Traveling all the way to Asia is something Team Alpha Male did earlier this year. They flew to China for UFC Fight Night Blades versus Aspinall on March. The event took place on Saturday, March. If you're familiar with California, which I hope you are, because you're watching this channel, then you know that March is usually pretty pleasant. It's mild. Temperatures range from the low 60s to high 70s. Fahrenheit. March in Beijing, on the other hand, is freezing cold. Temperatures range from the mid-40s to low 40s Fahrenheit. So imagine training and preparing for a fight in sunny California, then showing up to a near snow globe. Yeah, it's definitely jarring. But regardless, fighters like Danny Roberts and the coaches and staff with him pressed on. According to the CDC, The recommended amount of sleep for adults is 7 or more hours per night. But when you travel multiple time zones, your body clock can still be on the previous day. So the quality of sleep you get is decreased. This means some fighters may only get a few hours of sleep or none at all. Sleep deprivation has been shown to negatively affect reaction time, cognitive function, and overall performance, said Dr. Doug Grabar, who holds a doctorate in physical therapy and is a spokesperson for the American Physical Therapy Association. In addition to decrease in muscle strength and endurance, dehydration, impaired judgment, and increased perceived effort during exercise, cardio is probably the most important aspect of mixed martial arts. Without good cardio, you won't be able to perform your striking or grappling techniques effectively. It can also be the difference between victory and defeat. Because of this, it's one of the main focuses during fight camp, but it's also one of the first things that suffers when you're battling jet lag. When you're trying to recover from jet lag, it's difficult to maintain the level of cardio you would normally have, said Dupuis. Your heart rate and cardiovascular parameters are affected. You can feel fatigue without even pushing yourself. There are definitely some factors beyond your control that can negatively affect your performance, but you can minimize the effects through preparation. There are 3 main things a fighter can do to prepare for jet lag. The first is to hydrate and get as much rest as possible. Upon arrival, this may mean sleeping during the day and staying hydrated with water and electrolytes. The second is monitoring your nutrition. Meals should consist of fruits and vegetables with a focus on potassium and magnesium. These nutrients will help regulate fluid balance and decrease the negative effects of jet lag. Lastly, the third is to gradually adjust to the new time zone. Try to go outside and expose yourself to the daylight, said Dupuis. That helps reset your internal clock. Try to stay awake when others are awake and sleep when others are sleeping. Basically, try to live on the local time of the destination. Staying active is another tip. Many experts recommend if you're flying backwards a couple of time zones, try to stay awake during the flight. Avoid sleeping on the plane no matter how tired you are. On Seyulan, try to keep your eyes open and stay awake until bedtime at your destination. Do your best to sleep through the night and avoid taking naps during the day. Perhaps the greatest example of overcoming jet lag came from Amanda Nunes. She faced Ronda Rousey at UFC 207 on December. The event took place in Las Vegas. Nunes arrived in the United States from Brazil a full 17 days before the fight. Not only did she make weight, but she dominated Rousey, knocking her out in the first round. While you may not have 17 days to prepare for a fight, following these tips can help you minimize the effects of jet lag. You want to try to prepare your body as much as you can, so you don't have any setbacks, said Duke. But sometimes when you travel, there are factors out of your control. All you can do is adapt and overcome. That's all for this episode of Fighter vs. Fighter. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to follow us on social media. Also, please let me know your thoughts on who should be the next fighter featured in Fighter vs. Fighter. Thanks for watching.
Okay guys, thank you for watching my videos.